He kicked me out on one of the coldest nights of my life, and the way he did it still plays in my mind like a bad dream. One moment, we were arguing over something small, something that should never have mattered. The next moment, my suitcase was at the door, and Ryan was looking at me like I was a stranger. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He just told me to leave, as if asking me to step out for groceries instead of forcing his pregnant wife out into the cold. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. I had been married to Ryan Carter for 6 years. For most of that time, I believed we were a team. I gave up a job I loved and moved across state lines so he could chase a better opportunity. I stood beside him when money was tight and celebrated quietly when things improved. I told myself that love meant compromise, and I was proud of how much I had given. When I found out I was pregnant, I was scared but hopeful. I thought this baby would bring warmth back into our home. I imagined late-night talks, shared plans, and Ryan placing his hand on my stomach with a smile. Instead, something in him changed. He became distant, irritated, and sharp with his words. It felt like no matter what I did, I was in his way. That night, the argument started over nothing important. I can't even remember the exact words anymore. What I do remember is how quickly his face hardened. He said he was done. He said I was a problem. Then he told me to get out. I stood there frozen, my hand instinctively resting on my belly, waiting for him to realize what he was saying. He never did. I begged him to calm down, to think about the baby, to at least let me stay the night. He opened the door and repeated himself. When I stepped outside, the cold hit me immediately. The door closed behind me, and I heard the lock click. That sound broke something inside me. I stood there for a moment, staring at the door, half expecting it to open again. It didn't. Ryan walked back into the house like nothing had happened. Like I didn't exist. Like the life growing inside me didn't matter. As I walked away, fear settled deep in my chest. I had no plan, no place to go, and no idea how the man I trusted most could turn on me so easily. That was the moment I understood something painful and clear. I wasn't just being rejected. I was being erased. And Ryan truly believed that once he closed that door, the story was over. When I think back to the beginning of our marriage, it almost feels like I'm remembering a different person. Ryan wasn't always cold or careless. He used to be kind in quiet ways. He listened when I talked. He made plans and talked about the future with excitement. In those early years, I felt safe with him. I believed he would always protect me. We didn't have much money at first. Ryan had just started his small contracting business, and most months were stressful. There were bills we didn't know how to pay and nights when we ate the cheapest food just to get by. I picked up extra shifts at work and came home exhausted, but I never complained. I believed in him and in what we were building together. When he felt like giving up, I pushed him to keep going. When he doubted himself, I reminded him of his potential. As the business slowly began to grow, I helped in every way I could. I organized paperwork, answered calls, and kept track of expenses. I did it quietly, without asking for credit. I thought that was what being a supportive wife meant. Ryan started making more money, and with that, his confidence changed. At first, I was proud of him. Then I noticed something else growing along with his success. He started talking about money all the time. Not just earning it, but keeping it, protecting it, controlling it. He became less patient and more demanding. Small mistakes bothered him more than they should have. If I needed his attention, he acted annoyed, as if I was interrupting something important. I told myself he was just stressed. There were moments that should have worried me. He stopped asking for my opinion. He made decisions without talking to me first. He began treating our marriage like a business deal, measuring everything in effort and cost. I felt less like a partner and more like a burden he had to tolerate. Still, I ignored it. I kept telling myself this was just a phase. I remembered the man he used to be and believed he would come back. When I found out I was pregnant, I saw it as a turning point. I thought the baby would soften him, remind him of love, and bring us closer again. I imagined him slowing down, caring more, and choosing family over money. Instead, the distance between us grew wider. His ego became louder, and his patience disappeared. The warmth in our home faded, replaced by tension and silence. I kept holding on to hope, believing that love and time would fix everything. I didn't want to accept the truth. The man I married was changing, and the baby wasn't going to heal what he had already decided to break. That night, everything fell apart in a way I never thought possible. Ryan came home late, already angry, already distant. The tension in the room was heavy before a single word was spoken. When I tried to talk to him, he snapped. His words were sharp and full of blame, as if everything wrong in his life had my name on it. He looked at me and said the pregnancy had ruined his plans. He said he never wanted a child right now and accused me of trapping him. Hearing those words felt like being punched in the chest. I tried to explain that this baby was ours, that we could figure things out together, but he wasn't listening. His face showed no concern, no love, only frustration. The argument grew louder, and then suddenly he walked into the bedroom. I followed him, confused and scared, asking him to calm down. Instead, he grabbed a suitcase from the closet and started throwing my clothes into it without care. I stood there frozen, watching him pack my life away like it meant nothing. My hand shook as I begged him to stop. He dragged the suitcase to the front door and opened it wide. Cold air rushed in, and I realized what he was doing. I told him I had nowhere to go. I reminded him that I was pregnant. He didn't respond. He placed the suitcase outside and told me to leave. His voice was flat, empty, like he had already erased me from his life. I stepped onto the porch in disbelief. The cold hit my skin immediately. I held my stomach without thinking, trying to protect the baby, trying to protect myself. For a moment, I waited, hoping he would change his mind. Instead, he shut the door and locked it. The sound echoed in my ears and settled deep in my heart. I stood there, humiliated and stunned, staring at the door that once felt like home. That was when it finally sank in. The man I loved, the man I trusted, was gone. The person standing on the other side of that door was someone I didn't recognize anymore. I picked up the suitcase slowly. My phone was the only thing I had left that connected me to the world. As I walked away from the house, each step felt heavier than the last. I wasn't just leaving a building. I was leaving behind a marriage, a future I believed in, and the last piece of hope I had been holding on to. That night, I carried nothing but a few clothes, my phone, and a heart full of pain. And deep inside, I knew my life had just changed forever. That night turned into the lowest point of my life. I sat in my car with the engine off, wrapped in my coat, trying to save gas while the cold slowly crept in. The street was quiet, but my mind was loud. Every thought felt heavy, and every breath felt shaky. I had never felt so alone. I picked up my phone and called Ryan again and again. Each call went straight to voicemail. With every unanswered ring, the reality became harder to ignore. He wasn't coming for me. He wasn't worried. I was no longer his concern. My hands rested on my stomach, and fear settled deep inside me. I wasn't just scared for myself anymore. I was scared for the baby growing inside me. Shame followed right behind the fear. I kept asking myself how I let things get this bad. I replayed every argument, every moment I chose to stay quiet instead of speaking up. I wondered if I had asked for too much or given too little. The betrayal hurt more than the cold. The person who promised to love and protect me had turned his back without hesitation. Hours passed slowly. My body ached, and my eyes burned from crying. I stared at the dashboard, feeling completely broken. The silence made everything worse. It gave my thoughts too much space. I felt worthless, like I had been thrown away because I no longer fit into Ryan's perfect life. Eventually, with shaking hands, I scrolled through my contacts. There was one name I hadn't called in years. Laura Bennett. We had been close in college, but life pulled us in different directions. I hesitated, feeling embarrassed and ashamed. Still, I pressed call. When she answered, my voice cracked before I could say a full sentence. Laura didn't ask many questions. She heard the pain in my voice and told me to come over. When I arrived, she opened the door and pulled me into a hug. That simple act broke me completely. I cried harder than I had all night. She made me tea, gave me a warm place to sleep, and didn't judge me once. Lying on her couch, I stared at the ceiling, feeling empty. I questioned my worth as a wife, as a woman, as a mother. I blamed myself for trusting the wrong person. Meanwhile, Ryan was still in the house we built together, sleeping comfortably, untouched by the pain he caused. That was when I realized how deep the betrayal truly was. I had lost my home, my marriage, and my sense of self all in one night. And I had no idea how to begin again. In the days that followed, I stayed at Laura's place and tried to calm my thoughts. Being in a safe space gave me time to think clearly for the first time in months. As the shock faded, small details from the past began to make sense. Things I had brushed off before now felt heavy and intentional. I remembered how Ryan had become secretive about money. He stopped talking about the business and changed passwords without explanation. Whenever I asked questions, he said I wouldn't understand or accused me of worrying too much. I trusted him and let it go. Looking back, that trust blinded me. One afternoon, I tried logging into our joint account from my phone. The password didn't work. I tried again, then again. Nothing. My chest tightened. I checked my email and found messages I had ignored before. Notifications about changes to accounts and documents, all dated weeks before he forced me out. My name was missing from several business papers that I knew I had once signed. It became clear that Ryan had been planning this for a long time. He didn't act in anger that night. He acted with preparation. He had already decided to remove me from his life in every way that mattered. The argument was just his excuse. The realization hurt more than anything else. I wasn't thrown out because of a fight. I was removed because I no longer fit into his plans. He wanted control, and I was in the way. Every late night, every cold response, every secretive move suddenly had a reason. For the first time, something inside me shifted. The sadness didn't disappear, but it changed shape. It turned into anger. Not loud anger, not rage, but a steady, burning feeling deep in my chest. I stopped blaming myself. I stopped asking what I did wrong. I started seeing what he did wrong. Ryan didn't just abandon me emotionally. He protected himself and left me exposed. He chose money and control over responsibility and honesty. He thought removing my name and cutting me off would leave me powerless. Sitting at Laura's kitchen table, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I was hurt, yes, but I wasn't weak anymore. The truth gave me strength. I realized that if Ryan had planned this so carefully, then I needed to be just as careful moving forward. That was the moment I stopped hoping he would change and started preparing myself to stand on my own. After everything came into focus, I made a decision that changed the direction of my life. I didn't go back to Ryan. I didn't call him to explain myself or beg for another chance. I knew that going back would only put me in the same position again. This time, I chose myself and my baby. Laura gently suggested I speak to a lawyer. At first, the idea scared me. I had never imagined my life turning into legal meetings and paperwork. Still, I agreed. We found a local attorney who listened carefully as I told my story. For the first time, someone explained my rights to me clearly and calmly. I wasn't powerless. I was still his wife, and I was carrying his child. That mattered. The lawyer told me to start documenting everything. Every message, every bank alert, every date and detail that showed what Ryan had done. I went through my phone and saved conversations I almost deleted. I searched my emails for records and statements. It was painful to relive those moments, but but I knew it was necessary. Each document I saved made me feel a little stronger. The fear began to fade, replaced by focus. I stopped waiting for Ryan to feel guilty or reach out. I stopped wondering if he would suddenly change his mind. That chapter was closing, and I was the one turning the page. My emotions changed too. I still cried sometimes, but not for him anymore. I cried for the future I thought I had. Then I wiped my tears and kept going. Every step I took was for the baby who depended on me. I wasn't fighting for revenge. I was fighting for stability and safety. I created a timeline of events, writing everything down in order. Seeing it on paper made the truth undeniable. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a series of choices Ryan made, and now I was making my own. For the first time since that night, I felt in control. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was planning. I was protecting myself. I was building a path forward, even if it was scary and unfamiliar. I didn't know how long the road ahead would be, but I knew one thing for sure. I would never beg someone to value me again. I tried not to think about Ryan, but news has a way of finding you when you least expect it. I didn't ask for updates, yet small pieces of information reached me through people we both knew. At first, I ignored them. I wanted to focus on my own healing. But the pattern became hard to miss. Ryan's business wasn't doing as well as he claimed. Clients were unhappy. Appointments were missed. Payments were delayed. The smooth operation he took pride in was starting to fall apart. I knew why, even if he didn't want to admit it. I had been the one keeping things organized behind the scenes. I handled schedules, paperwork, and finances quietly for years. Without me, everything started slipping. He struggled to keep up. Simple tasks became problems. Small mistakes turned into big ones. The structure that once held everything together was gone, and chaos took its place. Still, Ryan refused to take responsibility. Instead of fixing the issues, he blamed everyone else. I heard that he told people I would come back. He acted confident, as if this was all temporary. He believed I would realize I couldn't survive without him and return on his terms. That belief fed his arrogance. He thought he still had control over the situation. What he didn't understand was how much had changed. I wasn't the same person who stood outside in the cold, hoping for mercy. I was learning, preparing, and building a future without him. While he underestimated me, I was quietly becoming stronger. As his business suffered, his frustration grew. He worked longer hours but got worse results. Complaints piled up. Deals fell through. The success he valued so much started slipping away. The more control he tried to force, the faster things unraveled. I didn't feel joy hearing about his struggles. I felt clarity. This wasn't revenge. It was reality catching up with him. He had removed the person who kept his world steady, and now he was facing the consequences of that choice. From a distance, I watched as his confidence cracked. He still acted untouchable, but the truth was clear. The foundation he built without respect or gratitude was unstable. And without realizing it, Ryan was standing on the edge of his own collapse. The moment Ryan received the legal papers, everything changed. He wasn't prepared for it. He had convinced himself that I was still weak, still unsure, still waiting for him to decide my future. Seeing my name on official documents shattered that illusion. I heard later how angry he became. He yelled, paced around, and accused everyone of turning against him. He claimed I was overreacting and said I had no right to take things this far. Deep down, though, panic had already set in. This was the first time he understood that I wasn't asking for permission anymore. I was acting. Ryan tried to deny what was happening. He told himself it was just a scare, something he could fix with a few calls or threats. But the papers were real, and so were the consequences. For the first time, he was being held accountable for his choices, and there was no way to talk his way out of it. He attempted to reach out to me, not with concern, but with anger. His messages were demanding and defensive. He wanted explanations. He wanted control back. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I had already said everything that mattered through the proper channels. While he scrambled to protect himself, I stayed quiet. I followed the guidance I was given and trusted the process. I didn't argue or explain. I didn't try to prove my pain. The facts spoke for themselves. Ryan struggled with the idea that I had moved forward without him. The power he once held was slipping, and he felt it. Every step he took to regain control only reminded him that it was already gone. For me, something unexpected happened. I felt calm. Not because the situation was easy, but because it was finally clear. I wasn't being ignored or dismissed anymore. My voice existed in a way he couldn't silence. That was the moment Ryan realized the truth. I wasn't helpless. I wasn't waiting. And I wasn't going back. As time moved forward, the life Ryan worked so hard to protect began to fall apart. The image he showed the world could no longer hold up under pressure. Important contracts were cancelled one by one. People who once trusted him started stepping away. Without stability and organization, his business couldn't survive the strain. The financial pressure forced him into decisions he never thought he'd have to make. Assets he once bragged about were sold quietly. The comfort and control he valued slipped through his hands. There were no dramatic moments, no public scenes. Just a slow, steady collapse of everything he thought was untouchable. At the same time, my life was finally becoming steady. Through the legal process, I secured fair financial support. It wasn't about winning or taking revenge. It was about making sure my child would be safe and provided for. Knowing I could offer stability brought me a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. I didn't celebrate Ryan's losses. There was no joy in watching someone fall. But I also didn't feel guilty anymore. I understood that his situation was the result of his own choices. I hadn't caused it. I hadn't wished it. I simply stopped protecting him from the consequences. Karma didn't arrive loudly. It didn't come with anger or punishment. It came quietly, through honesty and accountability. Ryan lost what he couldn't value, and I gained what I needed to move forward. For the first time, I felt free from the weight of blame. I wasn't carrying his mistakes on my shoulders anymore. I focused on preparing for my child's arrival and building a future based on safety and respect. Looking back, I realized that patience had been my greatest strength. I didn't rush or react. I stayed steady and let the truth unfold on its own. The outcome wasn't cruel. It was fair. Ryan once believed that pushing me out would solve his problems. Instead, it revealed them. And while his world became smaller, mine finally had room to grow. Looking back now, being thrown out while I was pregnant felt like the end of everything I knew. I thought my life was over, that my dreams and my safety had been taken away. I couldn't have been more wrong. That moment didn't end my story, it started a new chapter, one I had to write for myself and my child. The betrayal taught me lessons I never expected. I learned that people show their true colors in moments of weakness, and sometimes the ones you trust the most are the ones who hurt you. I also realized that strength doesn't always look dramatic. It doesn't have to be loud or forceful. Sometimes, strength is quiet. It's the patience to wait, the courage to prepare, and the clarity to take the right steps even when it feels impossible. I spent weeks and months building that strength. I made decisions that scared me at first, but each choice reminded me that I was capable. I learned to trust my instincts and to rely on myself. I realized that I didn't need someone else's approval or love to survive. My worth was never determined by Ryan or anyone else. It had always been mine. As I watched my life slowly settle into stability, I understood the full meaning of karma. It wasn't about revenge or punishment. It was about truth and fairness. Ryan's choices caught up with him, and he faced the consequences of his actions without me needing to interfere. That clarity gave me peace. I didn't feel anger or joy at his downfall, I simply understood that what is meant to happen will happen. The most important change was inside me. I stopped blaming myself. I stopped wishing things could be different. I stopped holding on to pain that didn't serve me. Instead, I focused on the life I was creating for my child. Every decision, every small step, was about building safety, love, and independence. I also realized the power of letting go. Trying to control or change someone who doesn't value you only drains your energy. Walking away, protecting yourself, and trusting the process is often the strongest action you can take. Now, I can say with confidence that I am at peace. I am independent, resilient, and ready to face the future. The baby growing inside me represents a fresh start, a life filled with love, stability, and hope. I choose that over anger, regret, or fear. The moral of my story is simple but powerful: those who abandon others at their weakest often meet karma at their strongest. And those who endure, protect, and rise again discover a strength they never knew they had. My life didn't end that night. I began again, stronger and wiser than ever.